Thank you. So thank you for reminding me, but okay. So here we were talking about composition of two functions, and little f is differentiable at a, and the function g is differentiable at the f of a, that is b. Then the composition is also differentiable. That is what we are working on, and what we have compute. See the how to this epsilon, delta, etc. comes later, because there is no point in memorizing how will you choose epsilon, how will you choose delta, etc. or etc. So this is what we want to make it smaller than epsilon when u is less than delta. F of a plus u minus h of a plus u minus h of a divided by u. So we compose that. Now we know that f of a plus u is can be made close to this can be made small.
So minus f of a.
Sorry?
Minus f of a.
Yes. Yes. So our f of a is b, right? And this quantity can be written as help. So let me put it this way here. This quantity is b. Okay. Now by making suitable choice of u, we can make this quantity as close to b as we want. This quantity. Okay. And then so let's just call that for now, for lack of any other notation, b plus v. Okay. And so then we will be in the form, we will then apply g of b plus v minus gv. So using continuity, sorry, using differentiability, first we choose, given an epsilon, choose delta so that okay, this can be done because g is differentiable at b. But what was b plus v? Or what was what was b plus v? B plus v was g of a plus u. So by choosing u sufficiently small, we can get
Sir, what we make less than epsilon, that is the difference between g dash b and that quotient, right?
oh yes, sorry. Yeah. So, thanks for pointing out to me my mistake here. So this we can make close to is G dash B. And then what we have to see is that by choosing U sufficiently small, we can make this small. So maybe this particular one, I thought it will be just easy to talk it out in the air, but maybe I made a mistake, but whatever. So I will write out this part completely, but it is for a given epsilon, we first make this f of x plus h close to f of x plus u close to fx, and then using the g, then we can get the g of that is close to g of whatever. Okay. So I will write down and send you this proof. Okay. I thought this will be very quick, but it requires a little more work than what I had assumed. So composition, of course, before you get this, you are welcome to try out writing out the proof yourself. If you are able to, you can share with everybody, share with me, whatever. But now these are, maybe I should not have chosen that as number 2. I should have put that later, but okay. These are very simple observations on continuity or differentiability. So you have one subset and f and g are two functions from E to R. Both are functions from E to R. And you are given that both of them are differentiable at one point in E, A. Now, what I have done is I have made combinations. So first one is h of u is u times fx plus v times g. So it is u and v are real numbers, constants. So this is a linear combination of f and g. Okay. This is called multiply the first one by some number and multiply the second one by some number and add the two together. This is called linear combination. So if you have two functions which are differentiable at a point, then a linear combination of them is also differentiable at the same point. That is the assertion. So I put it as show that. I'll quickly go over that. The second one is hx is fx times gx. So product of two differentiable functions is differentiable. The third one is, suppose that the g of x is not 0 for all x. So g is a function which doesn't take value at 0. Okay. Then you can, then this hx equal to 1 by gx is well defined on the entire interval, and then that also becomes differentiable. And the fourth one is basically combining 2 and 3, that if g is not 0, then fx equal to gx, hx equal to fx by gx. So ratio of two continuous functions, so ratio of two differentiable functions is differentiable provided the denominator doesn't crash to 0. Okay. And deliberately I have put it, the conditions are given the differentiability at a point, and then you get the conclusion also as differentiable at the same point. As a result, if you have that f and g were differentiable on the entire interval, then the resulting h's are also differentiable on the entire interval. And here I did not put what is the, how does the derivative look like. So now while writing the proof, before that I have written, so if you take a linear combination, the derivative is the same linear combination of the derivatives. So h was a constant times gx, another constant times gx. So the derivative of h is the same constant which multiplied f gets multiplier of f dash, and the same constant which multiplier of g gets now this time a multiplier of g dash, and the resulting thing is h dash. And proof of this is very simple, but hopefully this time I don't make a mistake. So we have to look at H, A, F, G, H, and U, V, etc. are all taken. So now let me take. You have to look at H of X plus, might as well take alpha. And we have to show that it is coming to, let us define H dash by this formula already given. Okay. So we have to show that this minus H dash X.
So how will it be true for all x? Like it's only defined for x is equal to alpha. Fx and gx are differentiable for x is equal to alpha only.
Yeah, so H can be defined for all, but you are right. The second one is yeah. Okay. So now let us write down each of these and we will see that how easy it is, because it is, this one is U times F A plus alpha plus V times G A plus alpha by alpha minus U times F dash A plus V times F dash G dash A. And finitely many terms, so we can rearrange them as ever, whichever way we want. So what happened? I have missed out. Should have had 8 terms, 6 terms here. So this I have written just h of this minus h of a is minus fa minus ga, and then minus u times f dash a minus v times so 1, 2, and 3. Here again, I missed out U and V. So if we combine this first, and we will get UFA plus alpha minus UFA by alpha minus UF dash A, plus the same thing we write for G, V, G, B, G, V times G A plus alpha okay. So as right now I have just rearranged terms, and now this absolute value will be less than equal to absolute value of this plus absolute value of this. And because f and g are differentiable at a, given epsilon, I can make this strictly less than epsilon by 2, this less than epsilon by 2. Well, epsilon by 2a, epsilon by 2v, and total less than epsilon.
Epsilon by 2u and 2v. Right?
U, epsilon by 2u and 2v, and you have to be careful if u and v are 0 or negative, we have to be careful. So the way I would write it is epsilon by 2 1 plus mod u and epsilon by 2 1 plus mod v. make this less than epsilon by 2, 1 plus mod u, epsilon by 2, 1 plus mod v, and then the total will be less than epsilon. Here you will get delta 1, here will get delta 2, and you will take delta to be the smaller of the two. Of course, there are other ways of writing. We can say that if one of them is 0, we no need to take care of that. And then we just otherwise take epsilon by 2 mod u. But this way, you don't even have to take cases. Okay. So this is very simple to write, but you have to be careful about the choice of delta. So basically, the required object, we wrote it up as less than equal to sum of two things, each of which is going to be small if we make alpha suitably small. So now the trick is that choose both these in such a way that if each is less than the given chosen object, then if the increase in f is closer and if increase in g is closer than this, then the total will be less than epsilon. Okay. Now, there are different styles of writing. Some people may even say that if you choose f and g, you choose a delta such that this quantity f a plus alpha minus fa by alpha minus f dash a. If this is less than epsilon, then the first term is less than equal to u times alpha. Second term is less than, similarly, v times alpha, v times epsilon, u times epsilon. Total is mod u plus mod u times epsilon, and that is sufficient. But it is preferable so that you don't make errors to make the final object less than epsilon, so that you have made all your other choices going backwards. Okay. So so this one is the easiest of the proofs. Okay. Let's look at this one. So once again, you have to look at at least no. So hx plus alpha minus hx plus alpha minus hx divided by alpha minus h dash x. This we are claiming only at x equal to a. So here this quantity is equal to, this time I have not put absolute value, we'll do that later. So this value is equal to g of f of a plus alpha, g of a plus alpha minus fa ga by alpha minus f dash a ga minus fa g dash a. Okay. So each of them has two terms. Each term has two factors. So that is what we have written down. And this has two terms, each one having two factors. Now, directly, these quantities are not comparable. F of a plus alpha, g of a plus alpha minus fa ga. After we have proved the theorem, we can directly estimate this and write down what it is. But right now, we have not proven. So in proof of this, what we have to do is, we have to add and subtract a suitable quantity. So we write it like this. This is equal to F A plus alpha
Excuse me, sir.
ah,
Sir, how you wrote H dash A is equal to F dash A plus into G A plus F A into G dash A? Wasn't that what we are supposed to prove?
yeah, this is what we are supposed to prove. Yes.
So, I mean, how you wrote it like equal to that?
We are going to prove that this minus this goes to 0, therefore this is H dash. Okay.
Okay. But you wrote equal to there.
Okay, all right. So this one is okay. So this equality is a problem because we have not yet defined. We don't know what this is. Okay. All right. That is your point. Yes, well taken. I should not say equal to, but this minus this we want to estimate. We want to show that this H dash A is this. So we and this also I will take out. Okay. So this is what we are trying to estimate. Okay. We don't know what is H dash A. Our claim is it is equal to this quantity. So this one is written. Good. Good. So I have added and subtracted a term. So I have added a term here and have taken care of. I've added a term and I've taken care of these two things. Okay. The first term is not been taken care of and I have indeed added. So now we take care of the first term plus F A plus alpha G A plus alpha minus this term which we added. And now I write here this part minus okay. So now I've deliberately put a different color so that we know that the quantity which we added here has been addressed with a minus sign here. And then all the other things have been taken care of. These two have been taken care and the added quantity has been subtracted. So as of now, the first expression is the same as the second expression. Okay. Now let's there was only one page here I had put, but I require more space. So, but now that whole thing is gone. Where do I? Let me do by memory. So, okay, this derivative proof will come separately. Okay, let me continue to use just continue to use here. So now, the first term, we can write this, therefore the absolute value of whatever is coming from above is less than equal to. So in both these three, I can take G of A outside times absolute value F A plus alpha minus F A divided by alpha minus F dash A. So this is straightforward. So A is a fixed number, mod GA, maybe even 0. So we'll take 1 plus mod GA. And as long as this quantity is made less than epsilon by 1 plus mod GA, we are done. Epsilon by 2, 1 plus mod GA, we are done. We still have epsilon by 2 layover for us to play with the second term, right? But second term, if you see, first of all, here there is a FA plus alpha in plus and minus. So these two terms, we can take FA plus alpha common outside. But here, this one, there is a FA.
Sir, I think you made a mistake in the last question, sir.
Which
So
question?
the last term you wrote, it's supposed to be minus f of a plus alpha into g dash of a plus alpha.
But no, because we do not even know that G is differentiable at A plus alpha. So we can't write G dash at A plus alpha. If G were differentiable on the entire interval, then you are right. I could have put A plus alpha. Right?
Right.
So we need a little more work because we may not have, if G of A dash plus alpha were there, then the task could have been, the thing could have been simpler, but F dash at A plus alpha, not G dash, but F dash at A. Then things would have been simpler. But we don't know that these functions are even differentiable at A plus alpha. So little more work is needed, but we'll see. So what we do is we bring in one more FA times the multipliers. So I will write this quantity is less than equal to, I will write now mod
Sir,
yeah.
so can you repeat what you said for the previous question, like what Apratim asked about the derivative at alpha plus delta? I mean, A plus delta.
Okay. So he had said about G, but okay, let me ask you your question. So you said something I had written wrong. So was it about writing, instead of FA, writing FA plus alpha here to make it simpler?
So yes, sir. Add and subtract f a plus alpha into g dash of a.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that
I
was his suggestion.
think that solves the problem.
Yeah. So if we already knew that F is also differentiable at A plus alpha, then here we could add and subtract F at A. I didn't put a dash here, so which is a mistake. If no, that is fine. Sorry. No, what am I? This is correctly written and there is no dash. So F of A plus alpha is there.
Sorry, sir, which line? I can't see your cursor.
Okay, wait. Okay, so let me go back to your suggestion. Your suggestion was that here we add and subtract FA plus alpha and that will solve the issue. Here. it still can be done, but if I were given that the whole thing is continuous and differentiable on the entire interval, it would have been simpler proof. I do not, for example, we may not even be given that f is continuous on the entire interval, right? So we are just using that f and g are differentiable at a, and we want to show that their product is also differentiable at a. So I don't want to invoke any property at here fa plus, if I add and subtract, what happens?
So alpha is very small, so we can take that approximation in consideration. Like if the derivative exists at a, then g.
Let me first go to the statement that I have chosen. F and g are given to be
So you're not screen sharing.
this thing crashed. That is what happened. Yeah. So to begin with, we are only given that f is f and g are differentiable at a. We are not even given that they are continuous. His suggestion was to that should work also. That here, so his suggestion was about this line. So first term we are taken care can be made small. For this one, his suggestion was to add and subtract f of a plus alpha times g dash a. Okay. So if we do that, then yeah. So now let us go back. Up to this we had come. Our required thing to show can be made small was this one. First one. This one. If I show that this can be made small, given an epsilon, I can show that absolute value of this is less than something. If mod alpha is less than something else, then we are done. Okay. So this we are, by adding and subtracting, wrote it as these two terms. Okay. Now, first term, we saw how can be controlled. Because here we can take GA to be common term outside, and then we will have got what we get is the usual thing that is there for derivative of f. Okay.
Yes.
But in the second one, here we had fa plus alpha times the required terms for the derivative of g, but here we have subtraction is fa g dash a. So earlier I was thinking of subtracting here, but we can as well do it with fa g dash a. So here what we are going to do is we are going to add and subtract f a plus alpha g dash a minus plus f a plus alpha g dash a. So this minus of this will be grouped with the these two together are grouped, and then we take FA plus alpha outside times this. Okay. And then we had FA plus alpha G dash A and FA G dash A. So that gives me G dash A comes out common and I get this.
Okay, yeah.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we have got all the things needed to make our argument. So by suitably choosing alpha, we can just make this quantity less than epsilon by 2 times 1 plus mod G. No problem. Now here we will need to use that since f is differentiable at A, f is also continuous at A, trivial. But so this quantity can be made less than 1 plus mod Fa by making a suitable small alpha. By choosing alpha suitably small, f of A plus alpha mod of that can be made less than equal to 1 plus mod Fa. And now here, therefore, that tells us exactly how we should choose the delta for this term. It should be for epsilon by 2, this whole thing. But these two will give us only epsilon by 2, epsilon by 2, but we have one more thing going on. So maybe we'll go to epsilon by 3 choice. So let's say first I'll get delta 1 such that Fa plus alpha minus Fa by alpha minus F dash A is less than epsilon divided by 1, 2, 3. So 3 times 1 plus mod Ga. So that the first phrase here will be less than epsilon by 3. Okay. Now I have to choose, given epsilon positive, get delta 2 such that get delta 1 such that this quantity, this one is holds for alpha less than delta 1. Okay. Now we have chosen a delta 2 such that mod Fa plus alpha less than equal to 1 plus mod Fa for mod alpha less than delta 2. So this is using continuity. Since f is differentiable at A, f is also continuous at A, and therefore this can be done. Now delta 3 such that epsilon by 3 times 1 plus mod Fa. And finally, this one will get a delta 4 such that this Fa plus alpha minus Fa is less than equal to G dash that quantity. So each term will be less than epsilon by 3, and we'll take finally delta to be smaller of delta 1, delta 2, delta 3, delta 4. So can one or two of you feel confident enough to write out this proof? If you can, share it with me. I will then verify it is correct and then share it with everybody. Anyone wants to offer?
Sir, I'll do, sir.
Okay. And one more can also try if you are confident enough and you send it to me. So, as you saw, the product already gets into, it's not difficulty, but since we are wanting to write in this epsilon delta notation, we have to be very careful about choices. So, typically, this is how arguments are done, namely, you try to put what is it that you are trying to prove. You want to prove some quantity is going to be small enough if alpha is small enough. So what is that quantity? How can it be estimated? And when you come to the end, you will know that, okay, that whole required object is less than these three quantities. You have to make each of these quantities less than suitably epsilon by 3 because there are 3 terms. Okay. So you don't start by writing that, given epsilon, choose a delta such that this f a plus alpha minus fa by alpha minus f dash a less than epsilon divided by this quantity. That you can do only if you have memorized the whole proof, but no point in doing that. So you typically the proof goes like this. You come out with something which you think you can make it like this. How can you estimate these differences? You want to make this object small, right? Okay, now rearranging, combining, adding, subtracting terms, and so on and so forth. You go and finally come to this conclusion. Okay. So critically important thing is we have not used that f is given to be continuous at that. All we have is that alpha can be chosen small enough, then f of a plus alpha will be close to fa. That's all we have chosen. Maybe if what I wrote as 4th term I had written as a 3rd term earlier, then I would have had to choose only delta 1, delta 2, delta 3. Then that would have already given me delta 4, but doesn't matter. If any of you feel like writing a shorter way of writing this proof, you write yourself or you see it in some book and write, also no problem. Ideally, if you take it from some source, you should say from where you have taken. It's not a crime. Okay. So,
So,
yeah.
so I still didn't understand why we're not allowing f to be continuous at a.
No. F is continuous at A, but F is not continuous everywhere. F is not continuous at A plus alpha. F is continuous at A, which we are allowing or we are using.
So, but if alpha is infinitely close to 0, then shouldn't f of a plus alpha be equal to f of a if f is continuous at a?
It is not equal to, it is close to.
Yes, so it infinitely tends to 0.
It tends to 0. We don't say infinitely tends to 0. Okay. The difference tends to 0. But you see, tending to 0, but you are then multiplying it by something and saying that it is still small. That is a problem. So For example, you say that, there is some sequence an which is converging to 0, and somebody else challenges you saying that, well, he has taken n to be 1 million and a of 1 million is still not close to 0. It is still large enough. You say, yeah, so what? All I have said is n tends to infinity. I have not said what happens at 1 million, right? So, intuitively, yes, we can say that this is close to f of a plus alpha is close to fa, so therefore we are done. But when we want to write down the proof, we have to write it out, making it taking into account everything appropriately. You get my point? Was it Romit who asked the last
Yes,
question?
sir. So I'll look at the proof and then
Yeah.
I think it will make it clear.
So, yeah.
Sir, in the delta 2 one, if after f of a plus alpha, instead of 1, I should think it should be epsilon by 3 1 plus g dash. If please correct me if I'm wrong.
For delta 2,
Yes, f of mod of f of after the inequality, instead of 1, I think it should be epsilon by 3 times 1 plus g dash a. If I'm wrong.
So the delta 2 and delta 3 I am choosing so that the second term is smaller than epsilon by 3.
No, sir, in the here you have to, it is close as 1, f of a plus alpha and f of a are close by 1. I think it should be epsilon by 3 times 1 plus g dash a.
No. Why should it be 1 plus g dash a here?
Because it is multiplied by g dash e.
No. You see, so the so my second term, I have put it in one part is green, one part is marked now in yellow. Okay.
No, sir, I'm discussing the third one.
Third. So, yeah.
Yes, in the delta 2, it is written for delta 2, I guess. The third part.
But third is for this one. Which is what is written. I'm still missing what you are saying.
Sir, delta 2 is in which we are closing f of a plus alpha and f of a, and the third part is proven by linked to delta 2, I guess. So here instead of 1, it should be.
Wait. Delta 2 and delta 3 are together taking care of the thing which is marked in green and in yellow.
Oh.
I will for the fourth. What is the third term here? Which now let me take it. Let me mark it in red. I have not written it out. That is simpler to write. Therefore, I have not written.
Okay, sir. Oh, sorry.
Okay. So the delta 3, the point delta 3 is about the yellow circle part, and for this one I will have to get a delta 4. And you are right, delta 4, the g dash a will come into the picture. Okay?
Yes, sir, got it.
Okay. So there may be shorter ways of writing this proof, okay? Because just like I don't expect you to memorize the proof, I also don't memorize the proof. Okay? I take an idea and then try to elaborate and expand it when I'm trying to write out a proof. In the process, I may get wrong, but I will discover myself, or one of you will tell me, sir, it is wrong. And then we correct that. If nobody corrects me, hopefully I will find an error by the time I conclude the proof. Okay. So there may be a shorter way of writing this proof. One thing is that later when you are writing out a paper for publication, there is some advantage in trying to write down the shortest possible way and quickest way, etc., because otherwise the referee is going to write all that. But for learning and for teaching as far as writing an exam, nobody demands that, you must write it in the shortest possible way. Should be intuitively, it should be clear as what you are doing. That's all that matters. Okay. So coming back to this business about, if a plus alpha is close to fa because the f is continuous. So if alpha is small, we can take it like fa. So the difference that I told you, that all we are claiming is in the limit that, as alpha tends to 0, that is equal to fa, but not for any given alpha. And this misunderstanding leads to all kinds of communications. So for example, I don't know, this generation may not be all that follow-up of cricket, or maybe the IPL has revived and people's interest in cricket. But from an era before IPL and so on, but before, when people were still quite interested in cricket, when I was a student, let's say, or early years of my teaching. So a newspaper report, these days we only hear, we don't see these things on so much of newspaper report, but those days newspaper report said that, I forget about which captain was the statement, that this captain in last 12 matches that he has been a captain, he has lost all the 12 tosses. Law of large numbers in probability says that, as n becomes large, the average number should come up close to half. So it is high time. So then the conclusion was, the law of large number says that it is high time he is going to win the toss. So he will win the toss next one, because his average has to go up to half, but right now it is 0. Now, that is a statement which is wrong, as next semester you are going to do also a probability course. At that time, you might hear something like this. And if you are still not convinced at that time also, you can write to me and I will convince you. That it only says that as n becomes large, eventually it should map up. Now, nobody is going to remain captain forever. Maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 30. So really speaking, law of large numbers doesn't tell you anything about that. If you are a captain for 30, then you must be close to 15 winning and 15 losses. No. All it says is that the chances that out of 30 you will be winning less than 10 is very low, but it doesn't rule it out. Virat Kohli in every match before IPL, he has lost or won?
He lost a lot of he lost a lot of tosses.
Lot of tosses. Okay. So what this says is, the probability theory is an entirely different area to think about and understand. And that also happens to be my area of work. But there's a lot of misunderstanding on that score. Somebody will say, oh, Virat Kohli is violating law of large numbers. He has large number of matches, he is losing the toss. Law of large numbers doesn't say, it says the chances of that happening are low. It doesn't say they are 0. Okay. So likewise in the proof here, f of a plus alpha will be close to fa, but we can't say that it is equal to fa. So in the proof, we have to argue and write out how much, what do we mean by that, and how can that required object be made less than epsilon by making choice of delta suitably. Okay. So I lost out the page where I was going to write out for the 1 by GA. But anyway, the next one is fx by gx. So the special case will be when f is a constant, then that will give me the 1 by GA case. Earlier, I was going to write out 1 by GA case and said that this one follows, but well, let us write out this one quickly. So now main thing is gx is not 0. And we are saying that I had not written out what is the derivative of h. Okay. Of course, all of you have used this in your class 9, 10, 11, wherever, 10, 11, or certainly by 12, that the derivative is what it is. It is f dash x by gx plus minus 1 g dash, etc., etc. So So what we have to do is, we have to look at h of a plus alpha minus HA by alpha. Right now, instead of making a epsilon delta argument, let me now do a more intuitive argument, because I have not yet written out what should be our derivative. Okay. So then we have to do the epsilon delta thing also. This is not the end, but this will be so one thing is clear, that if I add and subtract FA plus alpha by GA, okay, so in the numerator, if I add and subtract then I'm fine. Because I've just GA is given to be not 0, and I've just added and subtracted the same quantity. Now, if I combine these two, I will be doing fine, because then 1 over GA can be taken to be common, and then this ratio, this minus alpha, can be made less than epsilon by whatever number we want, by suitably choosing delta for this part. But now what remains? Now we get FA plus alpha can be taken out, and you have GA, 1 over GA plus alpha and 1 over GA. So we will be back to this green and yellow kind of a thing. Instead of FA multiplier, we have FA plus alpha multiplier, but we know now how to deal with that, right? So we can combine these two. By FA plus alpha will be out, and we'll have 1 over GA plus alpha and GA, 1 over GA. So effectively, we are back to the original case that was in the previous thing of comparing color may not see them on the screen. So basically, we have to look at the case that how can we make 1 over GA plus alpha minus 1 over GA by alpha, and what can we make it close to? So if we think about it, we will get GA minus GA plus alpha divided by GA times GA plus alpha times alpha. So GA minus GA plus alpha divided by alpha, this we can make close to minus of G dash A. And this quantity, denominator GA and GA plus alpha, when alpha is small, can be made close to GA square. So we can start off our gain by writing this this minus g dash a divided by 2 divided by g square. So we get that that should be the derivative of 1 over ga, and then we can go back and see what is the derivative of fx by gx. So firstly, let me write down h dash x here. Will be f dash x by gx minus gx square. Sometimes this can also be written as gx square common in the denominator, and we can then write f dash x times gx minus g dash x times fx. That's also another way of writing this ratio. So, okay, so lot of things to be done. I have to write out, I will send you because here it is only explanations. So let me go back and this proof certainly I did not even complete it carefully. So this certainly I will write out. So that I don't forget. Therefore, I have written my name here, initials, that I will write out this proof. This is, I don't need to write anything here. This is clear enough. This one I discussed, and one of you has offered to sign, write this up. Maybe if two of you write, even better. And this proof, fx by gx, I will carefully write out. In one go, we will get both 1 by gx and fx by gx both. This I will write out. So the MP4 file I will share right away, and the PDF. If any of you also want to write the two proofs I have marked RLK, you are welcome. You can send me. If you send me before I write out, then I will not work on it. But I don't insist. I will write out that parts and send you. So let me just go back and take a stock of what is it that we talked today. Okay. So one major part was this object, which is that linear combination of two differentiable functions is differentiable, and the derivative can be just worked out by the same linear combination. Product of two differentiable functions is differentiable at a point or at the entire interval. The same thing continues. And while writing the derivative, you have to be careful. It is derivative of one times the other, and then the first times the derivative of the second. Something which you have mugged up in school and would have used it n number of times. Now we have written out a proof of that. And then it is the ratio of two when the denominator is non-zero. Okay. And we have begun with polynomial, and then composition of two functions. Now, once we complete all these proofs, what would happen is, because we have taken care of all powers, k is any integer, and then linear combination, that means that together it will prove that any polynomial is a differentiable function, and we can write down the derivative. And then this theorem will tell you that you take any differentiable function, you compose it with a polynomial, you will still be a differentiable function. So we are building these tools and we are going up and up. So the time is up. If somebody has to leave, you can leave. I'm just going to make one or two comments, but yeah. So this is something which I just now said, that polynomial is a differentiable function, and you take any differentiable function, then you can compose it with polynomial and it is still differentiable at that point. So Friday, I would have sent all these written proofs by tonight itself, and any questions you can ask me. But Friday we will look at power series, or summation an x power n by factorial n. A part of it, for continuity, etc., I had given it as one of the exercises, set of exercises, or I don't remember whether it was exercise or assignment, but I had given that already for continuity. And now we will look at the differentiability of a power series. That will be our main task next session on Friday. And as I had already mentioned, that the mid-sem will be cover only portions which we do up to this Friday. So the mid-sem, as given the poll results, it will be on 3rd, which is next Wednesday, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is the day for mid-sem. But anything done on Tuesday will not be included. I would have frozen the question paper before Tuesday. And but that doesn't mean that any questions you ask me on Tuesday, I will not answer. I will not say that, oh, I will not answer this because this question I have asked in the exam. Obviously, I won't say that. I will. You won't even make out that whether I am answering a question which I have already asked. What I assure you is that I won't take out a question from the exam just because you have asked. Okay. So,
All right. Thank you.
all right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Can I ask one doubt?
Yeah, please.
I wanted to confirm one idea. I think in the last lecture or last to last lecture, you had written.
Just wait for a minute. I have had just 1 minute. Huh? Let me just check.
Yes, sir.
Hello. The marketing call. I was waiting for a call from Indigo because some airline ticket I have booked has got into trouble. Anyway, all right. Yeah, go ahead now.
So, sir, in the last lecture or last to last lecture, I don't remember. You had given an idea like something of this type, that f of x plus h minus f of x is equal to h times f dash of x plus h times g of x comma h, where limit h tends to 0, g of x comma h will equal 0.
Yeah.
So can we use such an idea in these proofs?
Yes, certainly.
Because I think that makes it easier. The proofs will
certainly.
become.
Certainly. Please do. And if you work out one of the proofs using that theme, even if it has been done here or another person writes another style, I will share your thing also with everyone. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, it does. But you see, while trying to write, while teaching, one has to try various things. something clicks with someone, something doesn't click with someone. But you are absolutely right. That way of you writing the proof makes things much easier. Okay. That is the modern
Okay,
style,
sir.
by the way. That is the modern style, because when you go to higher dimensions, like next semester, you will have a course where we are doing it for functions from Rn to Rm, etc., etc. And then that one works much better than this dividing by h and then subtracting and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, there's actually one more thing which I was just trying and it seems to be working. Like we did sequential criterion for continuity, we can, I think we could do that for limits also.
Absolutely.
And then
For
do all of these proofs with that.
Yeah. For derivatives also. Okay.
Right, yeah, do these proofs
Yeah.
with that, yeah.
If an converging to a implies f an minus fa divided by an minus a converges to something for all
Yeah.
sequences an, then that is the limit. Yes, that is the derivative. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Yeah, because this seems to come out quite nicely also. So
Yeah. So actually, what to do? I mean, if you are all in, all of you are in the hostel, and then when I teach, I am in the class, and then we all discuss together, things come out more easily. Now, given the limitations that we are all into, it is bothering you all a lot more than it is bothering me. But nonetheless, what can be done is, like, if you see a proof which seems to work out easier than what time I have spent on the class, most welcome, share it with me or share it with all. You can share it directly with all, or if you are not confident, you can first share it with me, and if it is correct, I'll share with all.
okay, sir. Right, okay.
Sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, so you are given a function f of x that is continuous in E, and then for x we can choose an epsilon greater than 0 such that if f of x x belongs to x0 minus delta x0 plus delta interval, then f of x minus f of x0 is less than epsilon.
Correct.
Okay, so that is the definition of continuity. So since this is valid for all epsilon, can we choose can we change this epsilon to epsilon by maximum of f of x in x minus delta x plus delta?
No, because you have to first choose epsilon and only then delta will come.
Yes, sir. So can we choose? Can we first choose that and then change the epsilon and delta?
No, because if that were possible, that would amount to saying that every continuous function is differentiable, right? And the very fact that you can take fx to be mod x on, say, -1 to 1, it is continuous but not differentiable at 0. So that will tell you why that proof will not work. Okay. So the ordering is extremely important, and you can't say that you will use that delta in the definition of epsilon. No.
Like, can we first choose one epsilon and one delta, and then choose another epsilon, which is a function of the old delta, and then get a new delta dash?
Yeah, you can, but now there will be examples where this choice will converge and you will get finally one epsilon delta. Okay.
Yes,
and then there can be case like this mod x function where if you keep doing it, it will never work, and you will keep going down and down, and eventually it will be 0, limit to 0.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So that is what can go wrong. But in some examples, it will work. I'm not saying it will never work, but so fx equal. So the best thing to do is take a function which you know is continuous but not differentiable at a point. Say
okay, sir.
You can choose some other function also, but say mod x, and try to apply your thing to at 0, and you will see why it fails. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
So will this axiomatic thing for real numbers be included in mid-sem, like proving that real number system is different from Bessel number system? Like it is an extension of Bessel number system.
Yeah, basically the only thing we have said is that square root 2 is not in rational numbers, but square root 2 is there in real numbers. So yes. real number system, I won't ask you to write down the statement about it, but we are using that real number system is one which has the least upper bound property. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right then. And if you want anything specific on Friday, this Friday, perhaps write a mail to me earlier. Then I will know what to start off with. Okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.